you ready to master the waves of medical device product development? Well, wax up your surfboard because you are listening to Inspired by Amua. And here is your medical device product development expert, that Hawaiian-hearted hostess who will help you hang 10, Megan Alonso.
E como mai and aloha. You're listening to Inspired by Amua, where we help you master the waves of medical product development. Each week, we interview guests that educate, guide, and inspire to give you and your product the skills to hang 10. If this is your first time listening, Amua is a Hawaiian word. It's spelled I-M-U-A, and it means to advance forward with passion despite rough waves. There are plenty of those in the medical device industry, so keep listening because we've got you covered. So my guest today is very inspirational. In his junior year at Georgia Tech, he suffered an ankle injury and wound up on crutches and found out how horrible of an experience that was and decided that they needed to be better. And so that's what he's been working on ever since. So my guest, his name is Partha Unnava, and his company is called A Better Walk, and they're in the final validation stages, getting ready to go to manufacturing. So please help me welcome Partha. Partha, are you ready to hang 10?
Yeah, Megan, let's do it.
All right. So I gave a little intro there. So fill in my listeners on your journey thus far. Obviously your ankle injury motivated you. But that's a pretty big undertaking. So tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, so in my junior year at Tech, kind of made the decision to go out and actually make the product a reality. We knew with crutches that a lot of the solutions out there kind of didn't really do anything different in terms of how weight was being put on the body. So we ended up engineering around the human body and around how users use the crutch, which included using a forearm support to help more of the body weight be applied against the forearm, and a side piece, which is really the key to our product, and that takes away a lot of the force from the underarm and applies it horizontally into the body. So we started by going to a medical device accelerator called 0 to 510, based in Memphis, Tennessee, and they gave us our very first couple rounds of seed funding through a couple venture funds and the initial education that we needed to learn the basics of FDA, reimbursements, and how to really make a physical product.
So you're a biomedical engineer. What about the others on your team?
So I started with 2 other biomedical engineers as well, and none of us really had too much of a business background. My dad's actually a business professor, and he taught at the Ohio State University until actually this past weekend. Now he's the dean at the business school at UC Davis, and he was a huge help in terms of just learning business and where to look for different resources. But beyond that, really, it was just kind of one of those MBAs that you learn from experience to get.
Yeah. And I say biomedical engineer, but at this point you are still a biomedical engineering student. So that's very ambitious of you. So congratulations on that. I was at the Ohio State University, that was my my junior year of college. I was a gymnast, and we had gymnastics nationals out there, and I just remember the hotel that we stayed at wasn't too far away from the gym. You had to walk past the football stadium, and it was just a neat experience. But this was in late April, and one morning it just started to snow, and so we definitely ran to the gym that day, and that was our warm up.
Yeah, that's what it's like up there. You never really know what the weather's going to be like.
Yeah. So you found 0 to 510 in Memphis, and you were in Atlanta at the time. So how did that work?
So we actually moved to Memphis for the first few months of the company, and then ended up moving back We went kind of with the goal of sticking around there. We were open to kind of whatever would happen, but we realized that the majority of our network was based in Atlanta, so we went back just to be around that.
Mm-hmm. So did you move up there while you were still in school?
Yeah, so at that point, actually, took a break from school to go full time with the company, and I've been doing that since.
Okay. So you didn't graduate yet, or
No, I haven't graduated yet, but
Wow.
I have some time still before my credits expire,
Yeah.
so we're okay. That's what I
Okay.
tell my mom.
Yeah. Mom, don't worry. I promise I'll finish. Hey, well, when life throws you an opportunity like this, it's good that you're taking advantage of it.
Yeah, it was just not a super difficult decision for me just because I knew that this was a product that I wanted to bring to the marketplace. There hasn't really been a lot of innovation in the space from my perspective, so wanted to do
Yeah.
something different.
Yeah. So tell us about your experience at what 0 to 510 gave you. What did you learn from there, and how did that kind of propel you?
So there's a huge fear when you go into business, and especially with newer people, that you don't know what you don't know, and that's the reason I think a lot of failures happen. So they taught us a little bit of everything, but it gave us knowledge of every single thing we would need to know. So nothing that was mentioned to us was really super new at that point. It was just stuff we had to learn for the future.
Uh-huh. What did you find that was some of the most surprising information?
Really, I had no idea of how even selling into hospitals worked, how the purchasing process worked. I didn't know how reimbursement worked, or even the relationship Medicare, Medicaid, private insurance, CMS. I didn't know any of those words or really how that worked. So that was just understanding the landscape of the industry was one of the more beneficial things of being in that program.
Yeah. Good. So you were working on that strategy as you were in development, or kind of pre-seed round?
Yeah, so that summer they gave a initial investment of $50K, and that's really for you to do the initial customer discovery, move out to Memphis, and go through the program. And with that, we built a very, very early prototype, really more of a model just to illustrate what we were working on, and got a lot of the relationships that we needed to get to the next stage. And from there, it's really just been a mixture of fundraising and setting milestones up until this point now, actually, when we're getting ready to switch into revenue generation mode.
Mm-hmm. So how did the application process for 0 to 510 work?
They do applications in, I think, March and April each year, and it closes sometime in the beginning of April. And it was a interview after that, briefly on the phone. But they choose 4 to 6 teams, and the nice thing is you have 6 other people. Everyone's doing a class 1 or class 2 medical device. 6 other teams, actually. So it turns out to be like 20 people in the cohort, and you get to bounce ideas off of each other. You see each other every day, and that's probably one of the more invaluable aspects of the program, where there's a lot of accelerators out there, and you're not really around medical device people. It's really hard to find all the medical device people in the industry that are actually doing it for real.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's good. So tell us about the fundraising strategy that you guys took. Did you immediately, after you got those seed rounds from the accelerator program, did you immediately pursue VC, or did you do some angel or friends and family?
Yeah, so the program is actually structured where it is 2 VC funds that provide the startup capital. And while it's low for what those funds usually invest, it's part of like a state program to promote entrepreneurship in Tennessee. So we had already built relationships with 2 venture firms who are reputable in the Southeast from going through the program, which was really nice. after that, we did a 450K round that was angels mixed with VCs. And that actually carried us all the way through finding a manufacturer and about 12 iterations of the product.
Uh-huh. Great. So what was the hardest part about the process? So you had the money and then you needed to find people to help you. What was your biggest challenge there?
Really, it's the time to prototype our product because there's a
Yeah.
lot of medical devices nowadays that you can 3D print and you can show, for example, if it's like a tool to help with surgery, you can actually show how it would physically work. Maybe it won't hold like a liquid or whatever it's supposed to hold, but you can show to a physician exactly how it'll work. But with our product, it has to bear weight. And the challenge was that when you 3D print, you can't really print at a density enough for it to bear weight unless you're printing with metal, in which case it would be cheaper to actually just buy metal tubes and fabricate it yourself. So we
Yeah.
were in this challenge where you have this product that we had a lot of plastic parts in our design with like rubbers and materials like that on it to improve comfort. But really to make those, you have to get into manufacturing scale to do it affordably. And that takes a long time. And then if you're prototyping, we were stuck doing 3D printing because it was really the only thing we could afford to prototype with since we were doing so many iterations. And all those prototypes were very, very prone to breaking.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a pain.
Yeah. So how did you get hooked up with your manufacturer?
So that was actually through a friend of a friend who does a lot of sourcing. So we actually went with him to find a manufacturer internationally.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes. So always be networking out there. You never know who can help you with whatever you need. So don't be shy in telling them and asking them. So walk us through, since this is a podcast, and I will have links on the show notes page to your product, but just walk us through visually why your crutches are so much better than what we're all familiar with.
Yeah, so really the key is two things. The first is the forearm support captures a lot of the body's weight. So what we found was when a lot of people use normal crutches, they push their forearm against the back of the crutch, and it's a very, very small part of the crutch that actually contacts their forearm that they're pushing against. So we widened that through the use of a forearm support. So when they're going through the motion, that weight is distributed all the way along your forearm, which means there's less pressure on each part of your arm. The side effect of having a forearm support piece is that at the angle we have it is that there's less force on the wrist compared to a normal crutch. So that in ergonomics is better and is actually very close to a platform crutch, which is kind of the ideal choice for physical therapists for what crutch users should be using. But unfortunately, not a lot of people use it. And using those to the handle and the forearm support where a lot of weight is borne, we were actually able to build around that into a side piece, which goes against the user's body on the side. It distributes weight over about 3 or 4 inches of height. And there's actually padding on the top as well as kind of a safety feature. And the whole side piece ends up when you use the crutch as you would a normal crutch. It's the same sort of gait. It ends up pushing into your body rather than up into your armpit. So you're not risking as much force to the axilla.
Good. And I know from being in orthopedic rehab that there's a right way to use crutches and there's a wrong way to use crutches. And, you know, a lot of it is that patient education. And we know that they're going to get tired after a while and they're not going to engage the muscles that they should be using those crutches. And so you should be always pulling your shoulders down as much as you can. And that activates certain muscles to support your body. But as we know, people get tired of that. And then you'll see their shoulders shrug, and that's where all the problems start. So if you can eliminate that right off the bat, and with yours, I'm sure you still need to engage some muscles. but it's just different, and it's not going to cause stress typically where it's caused in the armpits and on the wrist. So that's really good.
Right. That's actually exactly what we were doing. Is we were building a redesign around when people would misuse it because of fatigue. So our resting position is what we designed around, and that makes it so even if you're in the worst case of misusing, you're really only putting half of your force, if not less, into your underarm.
Yeah. So tell us about the work that you've done with patients thus far, and just kind of getting people to try these crutches out.
Yeah, we've done a ton of early testing, a lot of demos at PT clinics and hospitals, really building up to each one was to validate a certain piece of the design. So whether it was the handle angle or the forearm angle or the way the side piece interacted, now we're at the point where we have a design that's been vetted by a bunch of hospitals and clinics. We did a few trials with patients, but we didn't go large scale with that yet. We focused more on the PTs and the physicians and their feedback. And now we're actually getting ready to put this out in a larger scale through Georgia and the rest of the Southeast.
Good. So you are pretty amazing in that you had this idea and you just moved forward, Amua, and you didn't really let anything stop you, and you were cognizant of, hey, school's very important, but I know I can't do both at the same time. So give our listeners, because they're also entrepreneurs going through a similar journey of what you've been through. So what is some advice that you could give to them about helping to move their product forward?
I think it's a mixture of being naive but also humble. So you have to be naive enough to think that you can actually bring a product to market, and a lot of people fail because they're quote unquote realistic. So they know the odds are low that you'll get over every roadblock, but the people that acknowledge that and don't give it a shot will never make it. And once you get out there, you realize that there's so many people in the world that are really ready to help you and give you whatever advice or connections you might need to get to market, because people have helped them do the same thing when they were starting out. Yeah. So it's a mixture of that naivety of thinking that you can really do whatever you have in your head, but also humility to know that you don't know everything. In fact, you don't really know anything. But when the market dictates something to you, you have to be able to adapt. And when your buyer says something to you, you have to know that when you hear that from multiple buyers, that you're the one who's wrong.
Yeah, that is really good advice. Nothing really held you back from starting, did it? You just went out there and did it.
Yeah, I didn't really, and I still don't really understand the perception that things are not possible for people. Like, I don't think I'll ever understand that. But if you have something you want to do, I don't understand why more people don't just go do it. It's not more complicated than that. I think a lot of people want a more complicated recipe for getting to where you want to go, and I really think the answer is just taking a step every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. There's actually a book that kind of relates to that. I'm not good at remembering authors, but it's called Ready, Fire, Aim. And a lot of people want to do ready, aim, fire. And it gets them in trouble. I've had this in my personality too, where you want things to go as well as you can and really work and perfect things. But sometimes you've just got to execute and just go ahead and fire, and then you can figure out your aim later.
Yeah, I think that's an awesome analogy. It's not really about being, you want to be as prepared as possible, but there comes a point where you're hitting diminishing returns on how much more prepared you can get. And at that point, you just have to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So tell us where, you mentioned the South, Georgia and the Southeast, where these should be available probably in the fall time frame. If someone wants them and they're not in that area, are you going to have online distribution or a way to ship them?
We will, but not up front. And the reason for that is for the first really 3 to 6 months, the focus is on being in hospitals that I can actually drop in and visit. A friend told me that the most important moment of a product launch is the 6 months after the product has been launched, and it's how quickly you can adapt and change based on what the market is saying to you. So that's been the big focus with this launch. It's more about making sure, and we've been fortunate to have investors that let us operate this way, but it's about making sure that we can launch at a slightly smaller scale than most companies have the luxury of launching at, and taking the time to tweak and to adapt to what the market's saying. If there's a piece that needs to be slightly changed in shape or whatever people are saying, we'll be able to do that quickly. And that's the whole goal of our launch.
Yeah, I think that's a very smart way to do it, because if there is something to be improved on, you've just had a small market that you've tested it on. And so rather than releasing and I don't mean this bad when I say this, but say you have a okay product, and then your test market says, hey, we like this, but it can be improved. Then you can launch that really awesome product on a big scale, rather than launching the okay product on the big scale, and then you don't gain that traction in the market or that notoriety, or hey, this product is so much better, it's not as disruptive as it could have been if you launched it properly.
Right. And that's what I think we have an awesome product, and we've done a lot of little tweaks. We've done a couple smaller tests with it with clinicians in the last 3 to 4 months. We've done actually 2 little tweaks to it. So we've been kind of in that process. So when we go to patients on a larger scale, I'm interested to see what will happen. But kind of one of our prime morals as a company is that we always want to make things better. That's why we call it Better Walk. So there's never going to be a moment where we say this product is good enough. We always want to be listening and thinking differently so that we can make a product better for the patients.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And thank you for joining me on the show today and just adding so much value and insight into other people's journeys. I really think there's great information in here that you shared. And I just want to touch on, you mentioned the kind of a community aspect when you were in 0 to 510. And, that's kind of what I'm trying to create here with the podcast. We do have a group on Facebook. It's Inspired by Amua. So you can go to Facebook.com, search Inspired by Amua. Guys, go get plugged in there, and you're going to meet other people going through the same thing. You can just motivate each other, talk to each other. Maybe you want to sign an NDA, maybe you don't. But the answers and the guidance are all the same for the big general topics. So maybe you can just keep it at that. So thanks for joining me. And until the next episode, Amua.
Mahalo for joining us. If you're new to riding the waves of medical device product development, or if you've been in development for a while already, Inspired by Amua is here to surf with you. Want to be a master of the waves? Text HANG10, that's all one word, HANGTEN, to 44222. We'll send you the most common wipeouts companies make in product development so you can avoid them and reach master wave status. Again, that's HANG10 to 44222. We publish a new episode every Tuesday, so catch us at inspiredbyamua.com. Amua.